And then one day, he kind of rolls up to me on his wheelchair and he asked me that, sir, I've heard that you're a paracommando and this, that, and like, do you know how to scuba dive? You must be scuba diving. So I said, yeah, we do and things. So he said, can a person like me also scuba dive? So this is back in 2015. So I said, I don't know if a person like you can scuba dive, but I can check it out. So I went back and I was kind of Googling and I found this video of a lady called Sue Austin. She's a Britisher, and she's also chest down paralyzed. And I found a video of her on YouTube where she was on a wheelchair and she had a scuba cylinder strapped to the back of her wheelchair, and she had propellers and she had a wing that she had created on the wheelchair, and she was wearing a dress and she was doing ballet underwater. So yeah, so I showed it to this guy, to the Air Force officer. I said, it's possible, see, somebody's doing it already. So he looked at it and he said, sir, this is so complicated. How will I do it, etc., etc., etc. So there's a brotherhood, especially in these special forces, it's very, very pronounced. There's a brotherhood where you'll do, it comes from your heart, So I just told him, yeah, you don't worry about it. I promise you, I'll take you diving one day. I just said it, right? So it's kind of a thing you do for anyone, right? And there's this thing about being an SF soldier. Over a period of time, you realize you can do anything. The more you spend time in combat, the more life and death you start seeing. So either you're going to land up with a very, very destroyed sense of self, where you will blame yourself, you'll have a lot of guilt, you'll have this, that, very high intensity, your nerves will be fried, etc., etc. That is one way that an SF soldier can go, who has seen a lot of combat. The other way that an SF soldier can go is to actually evolve and to put things in perspective and let go of a lot of past that guy might be carrying around, and actually understand for life for what it is, that it is in the now, and it's in the now that whatever you choose, and you can create a destiny from there, whatever it may be, whatever. Mm-hmm. Right? So there's a kind of belief there. So anyway, so I told this guy, I'll take you diving one day. So I started. It became an operation for me. By that time, I had already decided that I'm not going to pick up a weapon again, right? So I had decided that. So I was in limbo. I was basically floating in space. I had no interest to do anything else in life. All these various functions that are there in the world of people going to jobs, earning money, trying to do this or that, trying to get accepted in their social circles, trying to buy material positions, trying to having ambitions about doing something great and fantastic someday, that the world will recognize them and things like that. All of that had no meaning for me. Zero meaning, right? Not that I don't respect people who do that, but for me, it had no meaning. It had gone beyond that, right? The very fragility of life and the senselessness of our existence, right? Killed any interest that I had in doing anything, right? What I actually wanted to do was I wanted to come out of the army. I realized that there's just so much of pretense that one is carrying in their mind, because the entire thought process is fucked up, and it's coming out of insecurity itself. So you're trying to hide that insecurity by building personalities and building successes and going out and throwing yourself in front of the world and trying to find it's coming from an inner lack of realization of what you are. That's why you're throwing yourself outside that much, right? And that it's like a cat or a dog chasing its own tail. It'll never catch it, right? You keep going round and round in circles. So until someday the world comes crashing down and you're forced to stop, or you realize and you stop yourself. And so I was at that stop myself stage. I had a dog. I had a very, very simple plan. I wanted to go climb in the Himalayas and climb for go into the mountains 7 days away from civilization, chop wood, build a log cabin, plant the kind of vegetables that I'll, that grow around there so I can eat. And if I want to eat meat, I'll hunt, and I'll just stop. I'll stop worrying about the future. I'll stop reflecting on my past. I'll just stop and look at life for what it is and just zero out. So because we are constantly, it's like you've got onto the wrong horse, and it's running. It's a stallion, right? But it's the wrong horse. It's running in the wrong direction, right? And you think that's what success is, and you're riding it and you're whipping and it's galloping away. And at some point, your heart is getting heavier and heavier and heavier and heavier, right? Because you're sensing that this is not where I want to go. This is not what I want to do. This has no meaning. But that's what the world says meaning is. So you're running behind that. So somewhere I just wanted to stop thinking. And I also understood that the brain is plastic in nature, right? And it keeps forming these neural networks inside your head, which become thought patterns. Every time an outside stimuli comes in, the same process will circulate in your brain, and the same kinds of thoughts will come out, right? So I wanted to stop thinking, stop being driven by my insecurities. That I need to earn money to eat food. I need to do this to have any meaning in life. I need to do that. I need to be recognized, or I need to be. I never had any interest in being recognized by anyone, right? It's kind of a personality thing, if you may call it. But just like everybody else, I was, in the constant seeking of purpose, all that. So I just wanted to get off that horse and stop. So I was in that phase. I want to go climb, sit there for a year, for 6 months, not think anything, just be. That is what I wanted to do, right? But then this whole parachute accident thing happened, and then I met this guy in hospital. I was a blank slate. I had nowhere to go, nothing to do, no interest, no ambition, no nothing. And then I met this guy who's paralyzed, and he says that he wants to learn scuba diving. So I made him a promise. I had all the time in the world. I had it came from the heart, so I had the energy to pursue it, right? So I started researching. So when I started researching, I found that there are more than 1.2 billion people with disabilities around the world, right? And then I saw that that there are so many more people who are terminally ill, right? People who are going to die, people who have cancer, this, that, etc., and people who have not been fortunate enough. Ultimately, what is life? Life is an opportunity to experience your highest dream. That's it. So many people who are going to die or who are on the verge of their deathbed, and and they have not experienced a dream. So their highest dream, like this guy, he wants to just scuba dive. So why not? So then I started my entire operational style of thinking went into play. That became the operation for me, to get this guy to scuba dive. So what I realized is it's all about value creation for large numbers. Since there are so many people like that around the world, who would have wishes like that, and if you could form a team that could fulfill those wishes, that would be meaningful in life. So for me personally, and then I thought that then the whole ecosystem started coming out. People with disabilities, since they are perceived for their weaknesses rather than assessed for what they can do, right? Mm-hmm. So what happens is, since they are perceived for what they can't do, they're already degraded, at a certain consciousness level where society looks at them for what they can't do, so they are never harnessed. But there are glaring examples, like Stephen Hawking, right? He wrote one of the most profound books, of which human beings have ever written, while being almost a vegetable, right? So there's just so much that a human being can do than just walking around talking or just doing whatever physical. There's just so much inside of us. So I saw the entire ecosystem of disability in the world, right? I thought I looked beyond boundaries. I looked beyond nations. I looked beyond religion. I looked beyond all of these boundaries. These boundaries never really made any sense to me. And luckily I was not weighed down by them. I had free thought, free flow. I could simply see. It's like, in the British SAS, they say, KISS, keep it simple and stupid.
Right.
Yeah. So exactly that's, I think, one of the highest qualities and the highest things that I learned from the special forces, how to think simply, right? And how to believe that you can go ahead and do it. Whatever you're thinking, you can do it. Since you can think it, it's a possibility. The difference between the possibility turning into a reality is whether it depends on your sense of belief and whether you take the step in that direction, and all the steps that need to be taken to reach your destination, right?
So did you take this paralyzed soldier scuba diving? Was that the beginning of CAW?
So what we did is, so immediately after that, so I came out of the army. It took me another year, for my papers to get processed, and I came out and I was at home, and like I said, I had zeroed out, and I went and bought a lot of wood, and I was just making my furniture. Like, I was filling my house was empty. I had no possessions, right? I never bought a car. I never bought anything. I had no use for these things, right? I used to have 4 or 5 sets of clothes, and that's about it. And that's more than what I needed, actually. So I came out with nothing. I never saved any money while I was in service and things like that. I never thought about it. I never really knew, actually, while in service, I never knew how much my salary is, right? Because it just didn't matter, So yeah. So anyway, so all of these things. So when I came out, I was building this furniture and all, and then one day I got a call from one of the soldiers that I used to operate with, one of my teammates. He called up, and he was also leaving the army, and he just called up, and he said that, he asked me, what am I doing? So I told him I'm doing nothing. So he said, okay, great, I'm coming to join you. So I said, why are you coming to me? You have a wife and you have 2 kids and things like that. And he was one of the toughest, like, SF soldiers that I had come across, right? What a guy, what a man, what a heart, what a body, blessed, right? So this guy, and he wants to join me. And I just told him that I'm not doing anything, and I can't take your responsibility. You're a guy who would get so much more when you go out, right? But he just said, I just want to be with you. So I said, but I don't have anything. I don't have any money. I don't have anything. I can't give you anything. If I'm able to look after myself, that is more than enough. And that's what I want to do. So he said, no, I'm not worried about money. Money we will make. I just want to be with you. Let's be together. So I said, okay. So come. So he came. When he came, so he was quite an expert mountaineer, in the military and all that. He had broken a lot of physical records, a lot of technical, and, those kind of records he had created. Very, very solid guy. So, if there's just 2 of you in contact, I would like that guy to be with me, that kind of guy. So we kind of got together, and then it started rolling, very, very quickly I found 10 of these ex-SF soldiers sitting inside my house, right? And some of the Navy Marine commandos and all the Navy SF guys also joined in. So there was a joint team of the Army and Navy ex-veteran guys sitting together in the house, and everybody's looking at each other. Okay, let's do something together, So I said, I've said it earlier as well, and what I used to feel was that one day I was, climbing a mountain, and it was, the dawn was breaking, and I was right on the crest, on the ridge line, and I looked back, and I was operating with these 5 other soldiers. There's 6 of us. So I just looked at that squad, and this thing came out from my mind. In Hindi, in our national language, we say, कि अगर मैंने इन बंदों के साथ दूध की दुकान भी खोल दी ना, तो मैं पूरी नॉर्थ इंडिया का सप्लाई उठा दूंगा. What it means is that when I looked at those guys, I just looked at them, and this thought struck me that that 6 of us, if we open a milk shop also, if we start selling milk, right, in a year's time, I'll take the entire supply of North India. I will own it, right? So yeah, so that's the kind of men you get to walk with, right, in the SF. I think that's the biggest privilege, So with that thought, so I told these guys, that whatever we do in this world from here on, together, we'll do it together, and we'll build. We'll think together, we'll operate together, we'll do everything together, right? But before we go out to do that, let us travel across the country and train as many people who are paralyzed. We'll train them in scuba diving, right? So as has always been the case with the teams I've worked with, the crazier the idea, the faster the yes is, so
Yeah.
yeah. So I said, let's travel across India, across the entire length of India, and let's train as many people with disabilities as we meet, as many paralyzed people as we meet. Let's introduce them to scuba diving. And everybody said, yes, let's do it. And that's when my life started changing, when I actually started to see the magical side of the experience called life, right? So the reality of life is singular, but how you experience it is what defines life for you, for anyone, right? So there's a 3D reality that our mind is accustomed to operate in, which we think that, okay, if I do this, then that will happen, and that will have cause and effect, basically. So we are able to calculate a certain matrix that, okay, if I do this, I meet this guy, I have this network, I will be able to do that. Okay, if I have this kind of money, I'll be able to buy this, and then I will be able to do that. So that's how your brain works, right? 2 + 2 = 4. 4 + 2 = 6. But there's a magical side of life as well, which most people don't get to experience because we don't cross that threshold at all, right? That magical side of life is where you are in alignment with the universe, and the universe starts throwing things at you, magical things. So we started off in 2020, and in fact 2019 we got together. And over the last 4 years, we have been living in a constant series of magic. We are operating at magical level only, right? So what happened is we got together, and then somebody called up. Some random guy called up from somewhere, and I've heard about you guys, and I would like to collaborate with you, etc. That's the first time I heard this word, collaboration, right? So this guy calls up and he says, I want to collaborate with you. And I said, okay, what do you do? So he said, I've just opened up a dive shop. I sell diving equipment. I said, fantastic. We don't have diving equipment. We plan to travel across the country and train as many people with disabilities that we find in scuba diving. So we need gear. He said, fantastic, I'll send you the gear. So he sent us a couple of $1,000 worth of $15,000-$20,000 worth of equipment. He just sent it to us, right? With nothing, no ask, no nothing. He said, use it. Whenever you're done, please send it back to me. So we had gear now. We had the skills. So we had a little money left. So I sent the divers. We went to Thailand, and we learned a specialized course of how to teach people with disabilities how to dive. We did that particular course, and then we came back, and of course all of the guys who were there with me, they had about like 20,000, 30,000 hours of diving. So very experienced bunch, and now we were certified as well. And then our journey started. We started from my home, where I am right now in Chandigarh, and we went to the spinal rehab center here. That's the first full-on exposure I had. There were 24 people who were paralyzed in various stages of paralysis in that hospital, and I saw them play wheelchair basketball. And that's the roughest game of basketball that I ever seen in my life. They were bashing each other up, right? You have to see people on wheelchairs playing basketball. It's crazy. Violence. And then these guys come up, and we are in a room, and I ask them, okay, so I'm Major so-and-so, and these are our guys, and we are all divers, and we'd like to, anybody, if you are interested in scuba diving, we'd like to teach you, all 24 paralyzed people who could raise their hands, who were waist down paralyzed, raised their hands, people who were neck down paralyzed and could not move their body, opened their mouth and shouted, all 24 shouted, we want to do it. And that shocked me. So that's where this whole ecosystem started opening up. And we trained all 24 of them. We've always lived on the fly. Whatever we've had, we always go in having belief. All the resources come at the right time, the right place, the right amount every time. That's how we are operating, right? We're constantly operating like that. So none of us is rich or wealthy or things like that. We never really cared too much about these things, but we are very, very wealthy in the sense that it's like the universe is holding my bank account, just draw. So it's once you understand, you've seen death so much, you don't really give a fuck, you just go there and do it. The universe has to catch up with you. You don't have to catch up with the universe. It's like that.
Well, it sounds like the universe was making a lot of deposits in that bank account too, Vivek.
Yeah,
it had a lot for you to do.
Yeah. So it's like money, right? People think to be successful, to do anything in life, you need money, right? But actually, the things that are really worth doing, they either cost too much money that you can never ever make in your life, right? Or they don't need money at all, right? In any case, the rich person, I understood money when I came outside. What I understood about money is, what is being rich? Being rich is having the right amount of money at the right point of time. Not a rupee more, not a dollar less, When you have a little bit too much, you'll go and do something else rather than what you really wanted to do, right? So if you have the right amount of money to the dollar, you have the right amount of money, to do what you need to do right now. That's a rich man, right? So anyway, so that's how we have been operating, and then we traveled across the country, and what happened is we saw a phenomenal amount of healing happening. There was this lady who was, for 7 years, her left side was paralyzed, and we took her diving 5 times, for 5 continuous sessions. We took her out, and her legs started moving. Wow. So yeah, we've seen some crazy things. The speed with which the body responds, with how the mind starts healing. All of these things started coming out as we started traveling across the country. And so I started researching that, why is it like this? Where is this healing happening from? And why is it so rapid? So we started speaking to some doctors and things like that, started researching on the internet, found a lot of research documents on this, came up on the concept of depth therapy, etc. So in the US, I believe it's quite popular, where people who have got injured in combat in Iraq and Afghanistan, who have lost limbs, etc., so they undergo something called depth therapy, where they're exposed to either hyperbaric chambers or actual scuba diving. It speeds up. So the science of it is basically, it operates when you're at a certain depth underwater. Your DNA, the ends of your DNA, called your telomeres, basically, they start lengthening, and telomeres is what defines your regenerative capacity of your body. So every time the DNA divides, the telomeres goes shorter and shorter and shorter and shorter. So therefore, the speed with which you generate new cells becomes slower and slower and slower. So you grow old. Your ability to heal becomes more and lesser and lesser and lesser. So, but when you dive and you go under certain pressure, and especially in an aquatic environment, when you're diving in the open sea and things like that, there's an impact on your body right down to your DNA level, where your telomeres start regenerating, right? So your ability to reproduce new cells again gets jacked up, and also your mind starts expanding, because it's a meditative experience. For 40-45 minutes in a dive, you're not listening to anything, you're not thinking anything. You may be getting divorced on land, but when you're underwater, you will not think about it, right? You'll be just diving. So anyway, so we started decoding why this healing is happening, and by the time we kind of reached Bombay, it was very, very clear that this needs to be institutionalized. This kind of therapy needs to be institutionalized for people with disabilities, because the healing is rapid, right? And not only rapid, it stays. It's enduring, right? It's not that today you get therapy and tomorrow you go home and day after you're wanting to commit suicide again, right? It's not like that. So it's once you get sorted, it remains sorted for quite some time. It's sustainable. So I started speaking to a lot of people in our government and things like that, where I start saying, we need to tap into this energy. There are lakhs of people like this who are not being tapped into. Their potential to do something in life is not being harnessed. That's just energy just lying wasted around, right? And especially, what is so special about having what does disability actually do to you? It's like this, when the chips are down and your back is against the wall, that's when you fight the hardest. That's when your best comes out, right? So you can look at getting paralyzed or people who get disabled in some form or the other. is that your back is against the wall.
Right.
The only way out is that you have to believe in yourself. You have to look within and move out. And also your other senses start getting enhanced, right? If your hearing goes a little low, your eyesight will go a little higher. It compensates. So the body is pretty magical. So anyway, the long and short of the story is that we traveled across the country and we understood that there needs to be an ecosystem which is created, which institutionalizes and offers these facilities, these healing opportunities, these regenerative opportunities, these opportunities to tap into the human potential of people with disabilities. These need to be created. So that is the overall solution that I came up with. We called it the human ability biomes. And I went to a lot of government officials and spoke and this, that, but what I realized is things don't move on ideas. Things move on successes, right? So success creates success. So need creates more need. So I decided, throughout this entire journey that, about a year we were traveling, and I constantly found myself asking other people for things. Please give me this, please give me that, because I need to take these guys out diving. I need this, I need that. And I'm a person who doesn't believe in charity, right? It's a good thing. Empathy is a good thing, but sympathy is just destructive, right? Sympathy is just judgment. Empathy is what, when you feel for human beings, you can feel the other person's, discomfort or pain or whatever. That's useful. But pity and charity, when you feel pitiful for another person, is just going to make you more stupider than you are, and never going to get you anywhere, right? It's never going to help anyone. Pity doesn't help anyone. So I just took a break. I just took a break, and I went home. I was fed up of asking people for things and constantly having to, like moving around with a bowl, asking people for give me this, give me that. So I just went home. And I took a break. I bought a whole case of beer, and I went to my mom's place, and I parked on the carpet, and I spent 3 days drinking beer. So I used to wake up in the morning. I used to drink beer and go to sleep. I used to wake up, drink beer, go to sleep, wake up, drink beer, go to sleep. I lived in that cycle for 3 days. I consciously switched off my mind and, let everything go and just zeroed out and just slept and drank beer and slept and drank beer and slept and drank beer. On the 4th morning, when I woke up with 3 world records in my mind. I woke up with that. I said, okay, it was just a complete solution. The first things, the idea was as simple as it gets, that we'll get a team of people with disabilities. A team of people with disabilities coming from across the world, across race, culture, class, religion, economic status, or ability. All of these differences that are there in our human perception and our mind and the way we look at things. We'll get, people with disabilities from across the world, across all of these various boundaries and barriers that we have in our collective consciousness, and we'll train them. This so-called weakest section of society, we'll get them across together and we'll train them. We'll teach them how to skydive independently. We'll teach them how to scuba dive independently, and we'll teach them how to climb a mountain independently, right? And who will train them? Former Special Forces soldiers coming from across the world, across race, culture, class, religion, nationality, etc., etc., etc. An SF soldier is a soldier, is a soldier, is a soldier. Whichever uniform, whichever flag, whatever he may walk under, it's a spirit. It's a mindset. Right? Human beings at the end of the day are human beings. And a Special Forces soldier is a special kind of human being. He's just more realized about himself. His potential is more on tap than most other people. Right? And in the reason why a Special Forces soldier is, dare I say, more evolved, because your circumstances make you. And when you're constantly living in a situation where you could die, right? And every time you come out winning is basically you're evolving, getting better, right? At some point you leave the matrix, right? So it's just, you have to constantly tap into what is there within you to be able to survive to the next moment. And survival for you, other people call it, may call it winning and victory and things like that, but you just survived. You just got out of it. because when a bullet leaves the barrel, it could go anywhere,
Could you tell us about the some of the endeavors that you have going on now that you kind of you pursued these thoughts? You mentioned to me Operation Blue Freedom and Soul of Steel. Some of these things that where you've kind of evolved this concept to. Could tell us kind of like what's going on now, where these endeavors are at today.
I'll tell you. So all of that, those 3 world records is what is Operation Blue Freedom. The 3 world records that I woke up with on the 4th day, that's Operation Blue Freedom. 3 world records in land, air, and water, created by a team of people with disabilities coming from across the world, across all these mental social barriers that we've got, being trained by former gods of destruction, ex-special forces soldiers coming from across the world, ex-military veterans coming from across the world, specialized in these various skill sets, teaching the so-called weakest section of society, giving them the skills and sharing these skills with them to be able to skydive independently, scuba dive independently, and climb a mountain independently. 3 world records in all the 3 elements of land, air, and water, right? Where what 99% of people in this world have not done, the weakest section of society will come and show it and do it, right? So it will destroy the perception of weakness and disability that all of us carry in our minds, all of us, right? Disability is what? Disability is the inability to do something. Right. And where does that inability ultimately lie? It lies in the mind, right? So if you could just crack that, worldwide, if you could just crack it, and who's doing it? Former special forces soldiers, people who are at the peak epitome of destructive ability, that at an individual level, right? You're not a machine. You're a human being which is designed to destroy. You're built, trained, equipped to destroy supremely efficiently. That's what you're supposed to do. Anywhere across the globe, in any kind of a scenario, you fucking throw aliens at us, we'll fucking kill them, right? Yeah, that's what you believe. That's what you believe. Otherwise, you won't make it, right? So former special forces veterans, I felt that this is kind of an energy that we share with people with disabilities, because they are constantly having to navigate a minefield of the world around them. A guy on a wheelchair, it's very, very difficult for that person to go outside his house and find a job and earn a living, right? It's very, very difficult for that person to cross the street, right? Very, very difficult for that person to use public transport, right? So his life is a battle zone. So that guy, he can't give up. He can't afford to give up, right? And most people with disabilities don't have jobs because society perceives them as weak and perceives them as a problem and perceives them as something that takes too much of investment to really get any value out of. So all of these things, So Operation Blue Freedom is what this 3 world records are all about, and all 3 elements of land, air, and water. And we did the first world record end of 2021. We climbed the world's highest battlefield, a team of 8 people with disabilities. Unfortunately, it could not be an international team because the Siachen Glacier, I don't know if you guys have heard of it, it's the world's highest battlefield. It's an active battle zone, right? Goes up to altitudes of about 24,000 feet, and it's an entire glacier. So the army is all parked on the glacier. You're basically living inside a fridge, right? So we trained. So it's an active military zone. So we could not get clearances for foreign participants, but we were able to get clearances for an Indian team, and we trained 8 people with disabilities, 400% blind people. People who can't see, 100% visually impaired, 3 upper limb amputees, 1 leg amputee who was a battle casualty. So 8 people, we trained them, and we did a 9-day expedition into the glacier and back successfully. Wow. Yeah, and so the idea was to create these world records. We are going in for the second one right now. We are in negotiations with Dubai and with Thailand for the air world record. So these are 3 world records that we want to create at 3 different places around the world. We do not look at boundaries. We do not operate on judgment. We operate on kind of a unifying thought process. Divide and rule, unite and evolve. So that kind of a mindset. So that's the 3 world records that we are doing, and the second one in fact, we're looking forward to some people coming in from the US as well, and from various other countries, from Canada, from Germany, etc. So a lot of, that's catching up a lot of speed. So that's one thing that we are on. The idea for it's a very simple business plan, if you want to call it that. It's we want to. The problem with the disability sector worldwide, so I look at it unemotionally. I don't look at it with emotions and pity and charity and sympathy and things like that. I look at it as a problem that needs to be solved, that can be solved. The problem with disability today is that it is spread across an entire spectrum and strewn across the world in little penny pockets, right?
Right.
There are rare diseases and things like that. It's an unaggregated sector. People are all, and the biggest problem with this is the research and funding part of it. Most NGOs, etc., spend most of the time trying to get money. So, from CSR or from funding, from charity organizations, etc. So most of your effort is in trying to get money so that you can go out and do something, right? It's like when you're going into an operation, you have to first convince your bosses to give you the bullets so that you can go and fight, right? So something like that. So we decided that we'll create a system where everything will come on its own, right? We don't have to go seeking energy. The energy will come by itself, right? So we decided the first thing to do is change the perception towards human disability itself, the understanding of human ability, the understanding of human potential, to change the perception of the world towards it, right? So the 3 world records are designed to do that, to change the perception worldwide. You create these 3 world records, film them, and show this film to the rest of the world, right? So you crack that, you crack the perception. The second thing is to be able to generate the network capital, to collaborate with research organizations around the world, right? To collaborate with employment networks around the world, to be able to come together and create the network which creates these human ability biomes, right? Where people with disabilities can come in and they can get access to the highest quality of rehabilitation, education, skilling, and connected up to an employment network. And in the background, so healing is definitely going to happen. You give a person the right kind of environment, like we've been watching, tremendous amount of healing is happening. So we've got a team of researchers in the background which is decoding this. We've got, we deploy biomedical devices, and before diving, after diving, before this, before that, we change the diets, etc., etc., etc. We work on the psychology and we give real world skill sets so that people can actually become independent and earn money by themselves rather than having to depend on their families to feed them, right? So it's an entire ecosystem. And in this ecosystem, when a person with disability comes in, when something that's supposedly broken, it comes in, it starts healing, it starts fixing, right? So when it starts fixing, automatically we have these researchers in the background which are picking up data. So over a period of time, what we believe is that this data will give out patterns. And what are these patterns? These patterns are basically how to decode or unlock inner human potential, not only for people with disabilities, but for everyone. All human beings in this world today, except the so-called enlightened ones, everybody else is operating below par. I know that for sure. Everybody is operating below par, right? It's a constant effort to become something rather than realize what you already are. So we thought of this entire ecosystem, and then we created the first human ability biome in Pondicherry, in Auroville, in India. It's in the southern part of India. It's an aqua biome. It's basically based around forest healing and underwater diving, etc. Now we are in the process of building a high altitude mountain biome, right? So whatever events or whatever programs or whatever designs or whatever training that we come up with is all towards one target: to create a human ability biome. That's it. So Operation Blue Freedom, the 3 world records are to create human ability biomes around the world. Every country has people with disabilities. Every country has got retiring military veterans, right, who are very, very specialized in their skill sets. So if we can create these ecosystems, human ability biomes in various countries around the world, where veterans coming in can have meaningful employment and can contribute to society like this, contribute the immense amount of skill sets and the mindset that they develop in combat, right? The heart the ability to tap into their heart and spirit, that kind of thing. And there, of course, their skill sets in the mountains and nature, etc., life skills, etc. Whatever they are able to develop, they're able to share this with people, not only with people with disabilities, but with the society at large. You don't have to join a big corporate and become a tech guy or this guy or that guy, or you have to rewrite your whole life. You have to shed all the capabilities and all the skill sets that you developed. All of that doesn't need to go to rubbish, right? All of that can be really repurposed and driven in this direction, which ultimately is leading to what? Realization of human potential, not only for people with disabilities, but for everyone across the world. So it's a large idea, it's a big thing, etc., but I've never felt that it's impossible. It's very, very practical, very, very simple, very, very stupid, and it's working, right? So it's working. And even Soul of Steel. So Soul of Steel is again a repurposing of veteran skill sets. So like I said, we spent 15-20 years in the mountains. We're operating in the mountains, constantly operating in the mountains. Now, civilian style of mountaineering, when you go in for expeditions and things like that, it's a very, very planned thing. You have a peak, you plan it and you go in and, you have your challenges and things like that. But how is military mountaineering different? Military mountaineering is obviously tuned to combat and tuned to endurance ability in the mountains, to be able to survive for extended periods of time in the mountains in high altitude, right? 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, month, 2 months, 3 months, being able to go into surveillance grids for that long, right? To survive that long. You can't carry that kind of food on your rucksack. You can't carry that kind of water and things like that. You can carry only limited things. So to be able to survive in extreme environments like that over extended durations of time. So we took those skill sets and the adventure side of mountaineering skill sets, created a hybrid, and created an event called Soul of Steel. What is Soul of Steel? Soul of Steel is is a challenge. It's a 7-day challenge in high altitude where a fusion of adventure skill sets in the mountains and military mountaineering skill sets come together, where not only do you have to navigate across an entire spread of hundreds of square kilometers, right? You have to navigate, you'll be self-contained for a period of 7 days. You'll be carrying whatever you can carry on your back. You would have decided your equipment that you've got. You will be tested for emergency medical first response. You will be tested for your survival skill sets, your navigation skill sets, and of course, the various mountaineering skill sets of rock climbing, icecraft, snowcraft, glacier marching, crevasse crossing, etc. All of this pooled together in a 7-day challenge where you navigate from point to point to point. And again, it's a repurposing of veteran skill sets. We are creating ecosystems where veterans can walk in and we can harness the entire mindset and skill set that they've developed over a period of time and share it with the society at large, right? Through meaningful things. At the end of the day, it's all linked to freedom. Everything that Claw Global does is linked to freedom, the sense of freedom within, because we are getting to do what we believe in and sharing that with the rest of the world through skill sets, through sharing of mindset, so that everybody can feel that sense of freedom. The more we feel free, the less insecure we will be, and therefore the more chance to evolve. As one man can't change the world, but there's nothing better to do, so let's just try.